London Olympic Games cost the UK taxpayer £9 billion. That's £150 for every man, woman and child in the UK. And you have to ask, was it worth it? If I asked my friends, if I asked people I know, they'd say yes, it was worth it. There are a lot of costs in this world. Parking in town, food, mortgages, following Jesus, that costs a lot of money. How much are they worth? I suppose the simple answer is, as much as you are prepared to pay. But what happens when it becomes too expensive? What happens when you can't afford your mortgage, or your food, or your freedom? What are the knock-on effects? You might have to get the bus into town, which wouldn't be too bad, but sometimes the costs are much higher.
I think when we think about the Olympics, you could get a pretty convincing argument that they were worth it, because it boosted jobs, trade, tourism. £9 billion bought us a prestige for the United Kingdom. The final closing remarks of the Olympic Games was, "When our time came, Britain, we did it right." And I reckon we did. I'm okay with that. But for some of us, all we gave was that 150 quid each. Others gave much, much more. There was over 70,000 volunteers at the London 2012 Olympic Games who gave their time, they gave their skill and they gave their energy for making it a success.
Jesus was sitting in a bustling temple. He was looking at the offering box. The rich were lavishly putting in their offerings, making sure everybody knew how much they were giving and who they were. Proud, arrogant, they believed they were buying their way into the kingdom of heaven. However, these sorts of people were just completely ignored by Jesus. Instead, he noticed a poor old widow. She walked up to the box and sheepishly placed 2 coins inside of it. Embarrassed that she had no more to give and fearful of the religious leader's scorn, she tries to make her escape, but Jesus has other ideas. He says, "The truth is that this woman has given by far the largest offering today. All these others made offerings they shall never miss, but she gave extravagantly what she couldn't afford. This woman gave it all."
The overwhelming truth here is that God expects quite a lot of us. Actually, God expects everything of us. If we hold back something from God, what we're doing is we're insulting God. If we held back our money from the 2012 Olympics, we'd be preventing the Olympic Games from happening, and we'd have all lost out. But it takes the vision of people to see what that happens, what investing that money in the Olympic Games leads to. It takes vision. 7 years ago, 7 years before the Olympic Games, it took that sort of vision. 7 years of hard work, 7 years of investment. But it's not just global events like the Olympic Games that need investment. Sometimes it's people that need investment.
Seven years ago, I walked into a room full of Christians for the first time in my life. It was the first time I met a real and authentic Christian. It was the first time that I experienced something different from a secular world. And there was a difference between the people I was seeing in that room and my friends and my family who weren't Christians, and that difference kept me going. That difference then eventually led me on to being more involved in the youth work that church was running, because it wasn't just fun, it wasn't just the fact that there was cake and there was biscuits and there was just good games to have, but there was something different, there was something true about the people in that room, and it was what brought me to church for the first time. So I went along to this youth group, and it was a really good chance to discuss things that you weren't supposed to, or generally did discuss in a secular world. It was a place where you could be honest and open, but it was also a place where you could explore things, and be the devil's advocate a bit and just set yourself up as a question asker and seeker, in a sense. With that youth group I went to a Christian camp, and that was strange, but it was also very, very interesting in ways, because it was the first time I had an authentic and personal intimacy with a living God. It was the first time that I had ever been able to actually say that I had met God in a physical way. And the reality is that it was good. It felt good, and it was so good that I got baptised that year. In September I got baptised at church, and that was a really good time. And that was the start of one of the strangest years in my life. Because the year kicked off with me being invited to go to Parliament to speak in front of a group of MPs and Lords about something that was dear to my heart. And then things got a bit more strange, because from January to June I had the toughest time of a desert period, just drought from God. I couldn't find God anywhere I looked. And initially I thought that was God's fault. I initially thought that was because God had abandoned me after taking me through the first baby steps of my faith. But then I realised it wasn't anything God had done. The network of support that was built around me showed me that it wasn't something God had done, it was something I had done. I had gone right when he had gone left. I had willingly and independently and consciously walked out of a relationship with him. And there are reasons why I did that, but fortunately that I went to the Christian camp again, and within the first minute of the first song of the first evening of worship, I was weeping with joy, because I had contact with the living God again, and I had found him. And then that entire trip was just a really good time to build up my faith before I went to Ghana. It was the perfect prelude to Ghana. When I went to Ghana, things got even more strange, because there were things I'd never seen before and cultures that I had never experienced. But it was just apart from all the youth work we did, all the children's building work we did, and all the church services we did, it was the perfect culmination of my time as a youth, because I had finished being a youth and I was now a man. I literally went as a 17-year-old and came back an 18-year-old. I left a boy, I came back a man. And that was because God had built my timetable so well that Ghana was the perfect breaker, the metaphorical and literal breaking point between everything I'd done before and everything I will do in the future. And if somebody had told me 7 years ago that I would be going to Parliament to make speeches to people, I would be going to Ghana to do a mission trip, and I would actually be a Christian, I'd have laughed you out of town. But the reality is, somebody had 7 years of vision to make that possible.
Vision is that it needs support. Let's say you want to bake a cake. So you go to the shop and you buy everything you need, and you take these ingredients and you really carefully weigh them out, and then you lovingly mix them together. And then you take this mixture and you leave it on the side. So, have you made a cake? Well, no you haven't. There's one final thing that needs to be done in order to take this soggy mixture of raw ingredients and change it into something which has actually got value. You need to invest one final thing.
The Olympics were worthwhile. Most people found worth in the celebration, found worth in the success, but everybody can find worth in their own different way. Somebody can look at a car and see the most beautiful thing ever, whereas someone else can look at a car and just see a pile of scrap and a waste of money. In the temple, Jesus was clear to point out that people value God differently, but the key point here isn't our differences, it's that God loves difference. He loves difference in nature. No two leaves are ever the same, and our fingerprints are all unique. He loves difference in us. It is the way he made us. We can give any gift we want to God, but the only one that's worthwhile is ourselves, because that is the one he gave us. He gave himself.
And the point of this is that Jesus didn't die so that we could give ourselves or our property or anything like that to some sort of worthless calling. Instead, he did it so that what we give to, it has real value. A value so high that actually it's worth dying for. The question is, really, how much are we prepared to give? Because at the end of the day, God only wants us to give one thing. And that's us. That's ourselves. That's me and you.